Hello, my name is Andy Martin from Mission Aviation Fellowship, MAF for short. I want to thank Aerospace Kinross and your chairman Alistair Stewart for this wonderful invitation and opportunity to share with you all something about the work and ministry of Mission Aviation Fellowship. But before we get to MAF, I think it's always helpful to put flight into some sort of context. The invention of flight has not only changed the world, but it has birthed vision to reach to the stars and in fact way beyond. We all are familiar with Disney, the cartoon maker, the film maker, the dream maker. And it continues today to fuel aspects of flight and space travel, especially in Toy Story, where Buzz Lightyear coined that phrase that is well used and well worn, to infinity and beyond. Flight has been a dream of man for hundreds of years, if not thousands. Initially, MAF sought flight to change lives. But flight has its birth way back, through kites and balloons and gliders. And with an insatiable appetite, the human brain would not rest until powered flight was in fact a reality. And in 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright built the first functional aircraft. And a little more than 100 years after the small wooden one-man aircraft, we've made passenger planes that carry hundreds of passengers, broken sound barriers, flown people to the moon and a rover to Mars, and are on the verge of making spaceflight available to civilians. Well, wealthy civilians. But a brief timeline of highlighting the history of flight. 1903, the Wright brothers make the first manned, powered, controlled flight. And I use control in its loosest form though, because we know that in these early years there was challenges. But because of bravery and fortitude, the Wright brothers birthed modern aviation. Then in 1919, the NC-4 was the first plane to cross the Atlantic Ocean. 1927, Charles Lindbergh completes the first solo non-stop transatlantic flight in the spirit of St. Louis, travelling from New York to Paris, France. A flight immortalised by the actor James Stewart. Then in 1930, the first transatlantic proven flight takes place with Pan Am and BOAC from Newfoundland to Foynes and vice versa using seaplanes. But by the 1940s, transatlantic passenger flights to Forres commences, and just after the World War II, land planes take over. And modern flying for the masses has now become a reality. 1950s, flights are offered in the first commercial jet airliner, the de Havilland DH-106 Comet. This plane served the world in the early years and is still seen by many as iconic. But as the 1960s started, the space race was well and truly ignited. For those who know the history, and I'm quite sure everyone at Aerospace Kinross are very familiar, but President Kennedy famously promised to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. And this was achieved in 1969. And this is the same decade that civil aviation took a quantum leap with the introduction of the Boeing 747, the jumbo jet, an iconic aircraft, one that changed the face of commercial flying, and it's an aircraft that was so suited to purpose that it continues to fly today. But in the 1970s, the French and the British Aircraft Corporation unite to develop Concorde, the first and only supersonic civilian aircraft. This cut the flying time between London Heathrow and JFK in New York from around 7 to 8 hours down to an incredible 3.5 hours. Sadly, due to costs and other factors, Concorde no longer serves We can live and hope though. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see the introduction of supersonic planes serving public need yet again? The 1980s, and all of a sudden things as far as the space race is concerned really begin to be ramped up. The first reusable spacecraft, the Space Shuttle, is launched. In the 1990s, NASA sends the Mars Pathfinder to Mars to commence the first exploration on the surface of another planet. In the noughties, the first non-stop round-the-world flight by solar and battery-powered aeroplane is completed. Airbus released the wonderful, incredible Airbus 380, a double-decker civilian aircraft. 2010, Virgin Galactic starts civilian passenger flights into space. And in 2020, Elon Musk takes flight in space travel to yet another level. We've certainly moved on in the last 100 years or so. Moved away from propeller powered aircraft just like the one sitting in the wall behind me. But let's have a look now at Mission Aviation Fellowship, an organisation that was born out of the conflict of the Second World War. Christian airmen believed that aircraft could be used for good rather than ill. And in 1945, and just a few short weeks after the war came to an end, MAF was born. Now, 75 years on, MAF are reaching into the developing world with all manner of aid. And this work is only possible due to the efforts of the early pioneers of flight. So I want to ask you to sit back and watch a short video that will encompass some of the work that MAF as an organisation are doing. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Well, I hope you enjoyed that insight to the work and ministry of MAF. You see, flying for life, not just any life, every life, is a real privilege and a pleasure. Aviation that we use is not for pleasure, it's not for fun, it's for real life-changing circumstances. MAF fly regularly into disaster zones, war zones, areas recovering from natural disasters as well as man-made conflict, where we feed the hungry, we provide water and purification for those who don't have access to the things that we do, healthcare, medical evacuations, etc, etc. And since his early beginnings in 1945, MAF began with one small airplane. Today we've got a fleet exceeding 130. But these aircraft require to be well maintained, The upkeep is vitally important, because if they're not well maintained, then sadly they're not suitable for purpose. And I'm going to show you another short video. One of our aircraft engineers from Scotland, who is based in Kijansi, which is just south of Kampala and on the banks of Lake Victoria in Uganda. An incredible insight to the dedication and the commitment of the many, many people who work and serve with Mission Aviation Fellowship. So again, I invite you to sit back for a couple of minutes and watch this short video. After that, I'm going to introduce you to some aspect of flying that MAF are involved in that will maybe have you clinging to your seats. So again, I'll speak to you shortly after this short video.
My name's Andy Swanson. I'm one of the engineers here with MAF in Uganda, and we're standing in our maintenance hangar here at Kijansi Airfield. We're quite a busy programme. We have 4 caravans that we operate from this base, and we have 2 206s, and we have this 182 diesel that have their maintenance carried out here. They operate all over East Africa, up into South Sudan and over into DRC. It's a really interesting blend of practical hands-on working with tools, and also thinking and analysing and troubleshooting and problem solving. So it's a really interesting job to be involved in. Obviously, aviation is a very safety critical industry, and so we want to make sure that our planes are maintained to the best possible standard for the safety of our passengers and our pilots. We operate in quite a difficult environment in Africa here, and so having avionic systems installed that are robust enough to deal with the situations that we put them through is very important, and so we play an important role in maintaining those and installing those systems. This plane that I'm standing beside just now was built in 1978, so it's just a little bit younger than me, and so it's because of good maintenance that it's still able to fly almost 40 years after it was first put together. I think the exciting thing about working in the maintenance hangar here is that all of the work that we do plays a part in all of the work that MAF Uganda do. The exciting medevac stories and the evacuating people from South Sudan right before civil war kicks off, all of these exciting stories only happen because the whole team work together, and you feel very much a part of a bigger picture.
As an organisation, MAF fly all over the developing world. We support the work and ministry of in excess of 2,000 different organisations who use us on a regular basis. From the first video that we watched earlier, you'll have noticed that we have an aeroplane taking off and landing every 4 minutes. You've seen from that other video the aspect of some of the landing strips, some of the places that we go to, and some of the cargo that we fly. We've seen from Andy Swanson how important it is to maintain these aircraft, to make sure that they are suitable for purpose. Now, many of you guys who are watching have had an opportunity to fly in fixed wing. Maybe 1 or 2 of you have not been able to get involved in the space race, so to speak. But I'm sure that if we are patient, that time will become a reality for many of us. The runways that MAF fly into, and we've got over 3,000 runways that we operate in and out of. Sometimes runways are unavailable, and on these occasions we will use float planes. So again, this is an exciting and dynamic aspect of our flying. Most of our runways are basic, rudimentary. Some are water, with rivers, lakes and whatever. So I do encourage you, make sure that your seat is in the upright position, that your tray is folded away, that your seatbelt is firmly secured, because we're going to go and enjoy an aspect of flying that maybe you've never experienced before. And I'll see you just after this short video. How about that then? MAF are really looking forward to the future and an ongoing relationship with Aerospace Kinross. And as we work together, I'm sure that we can introduce many young folks and maybe some older folks into the joys and the wonder of aviation. From the early beginnings, whether it be flying kites, gliders, balloons, or as the Wright brothers in 1903, the first powered flight. Flight has changed the world that we live in. It has changed the world and beyond which we live in. So I encourage you, if you want to know anything more about the work and ministry of Mission Aviation Fellowship, please visit our website, www.maf-uk.org/discover. So until we have an opportunity to meet again, thank you to everyone at Aerospace Kinross. Thank you to your chairman, Alistair Stewart. And thank you for just spending time with us. Take care, God bless, and I'm sure that our paths will cross again. Bye bye just now.